all together.
You guys, we just finished watching Sam Bahadur. I am Jabby Kawai, joined by Chara Kirk.
What's up?
And this is our review for the film. This same review will also be attached to our reaction to part 3 of Sam Bahadur. So you can watch this now, or you can wait for the reaction. Up to you. By the by, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. As always, our reaction is a cut down, you know, the one that's going to come after this video. And if you want to see it not in a cut down form, not broken up into parts, head over to our Patreon page or become a member of this channel. You'll just need your own Zee5 global subscription so you can open up Sam Bahadur side by side with our reaction. We give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown sync, and it's like you're watching it with 2 of your favorite buddies from the internet.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this review. I'm going to assume that any Indian person with a cursory understanding of Indian history knows pretty much everything that happened in this film, so I feel like we can speak freely without concern for spoilers, because this is a video that's going both at the end of a reaction and it's going to be its own discrete review of this film. I feel like I just want to state that, like, just going to speak freely as much as possible and not really be concerned with giving anything away. Out of just general respect, I just want to, you know, say I'm going to do my best to pronounce these names correctly, and I apologize in advance if I screw up any pronunciation along the way in conversing about everything that happened in this story and the events that the story depicts. I am firstly quite happy with the fact that this exists so that we can learn about this person. That's one of the things I've said multiple times about other things in this category, which is like historical films about India or historical films in general. It's like it just allows you to gain some insight into who these people were and gives you an opportunity to sort of humanize them,
Yeah.
you know, in your eyes, and just like a deeper understanding of their life and what they went through, etc. I think that Vicky, Kaushal, and the cast as a whole did a wonderful job. Obviously, it was great to see Sanya Malhotra again and Fatima Shaikh in these significant roles.
Yeah.
I think that just across the board, the acting, you know, felt very, very good.
Yeah, the acting was really, really great, particularly from Vicky Kaushal, I thought, because I just noticed, you know, having watched an interview with Sam Manekshaw and then looking at the physicality that Vicky Kaushal brought to the character, I thought he did a really great job of showing, like, differentiating that character from himself, and then also showing how he ages without it being a caricature.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree with that.
He did this thing with his head posture or head placement and his shoulders, where they were kind of here, and he kind of led with his head, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm like, he must have studied the man, Sam Manekshaw, so much to kind of get the mannerisms. And he also did a thing with his mouth,
Yeah.
with the mustache and everything. And I was just like, those are like really interesting tweaks to his own physicality, which really gave the sense of like, this is the character and this is not Vicky Kaushal, the
Sure.
actor, which is
Yeah.
why I like immediately was talking about Sam, the person, like the character, rather than how, you know, how sometimes in movies we say the actor name before the character name because like the actor is just so present.
Yeah, I think he did a really nice job of evolving over the course of the film, you know, because he starts out as a young man and his posture and his behavior is one way, and then
Yeah.
as the film progresses, it slowly becomes more and more of that person. That
Very subtly, yeah.
you know, I feel like most people who are familiar with him would remember him as.
Yeah.
You know, you don't start there, you get there, which is great. With regards to Sanya Malhotra and Fatima Shaikh, it's really neat and interesting to see them in these roles, just because like we've been watching their journey since Dangal, and it's nice to see them take on these like more mature roles, you know, over time.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really interesting to me as well, because like I really enjoyed Fatima's performance as Indira Gandhi. I think she like really nailed the seriousness and gravitas that you would imagine
I agree.
would come from this character. But I thought it was an interesting choice of from Meghna Gulzar to cast people who were clearly much younger. Especially in the case of Indira Gandhi, because I was like, but we know that Fatima doesn't look like that. Like, she's not that old.
Sure.
She's not as old as the character is supposed to be at that point in the story,
Sure.
right? And so I was racking my brain for a long time, kind of trying to understand what might have
Informed that
caused-
decision?
Yeah, which might have informed that decision from the director. And the only thing that I can come up with is that it kind of had to make sense since Vicky Kaushal and Sanya Malhotra were also playing characters that were aging up, that it would look weird maybe if Indira Gandhi was actually played by someone who was that age and then being put in the same room.
I would imagine that it has more to do with the look than anything else.
Well,
And
there's that too,
Yeah, the
yeah.
ability to achieve that look. Because first off, Fatima's dope.
Yes.
Let's just get that clear.
Yes.
And so, like, casting her, you're just like, if you get to have her in your movie, I think you got a gift. And then the ability to sort of, have what looks like that actual historical figure is probably a challenge. And so there's plenty of older actresses out there that are very, very well equipped to do the role, but how much do they look like her?
And maybe it just came down to that, but I did think it was an interesting decision because it just feels like there's an extra layer of like disbelief that the audience has to kind of overcome. Because
Sure, I get you.
Like with Vicky Kaushal as Sam Manekshaw, I think I could do that more, but like for Yahya Khan when he got really fat and old, I was like, well, why didn't they just cast someone else? But I guess it was just the consistency, right? Because maybe Meghna Gulzar wanted to keep the same actors throughout and then just like use makeup and prosthetics and whatnot to change them, which I thought was an interesting choice.
The greatest fault I feel like I can give this movie is I didn't have time to go deeper with anything.
Yeah.
I feel like this might have benefited more from being a TV show that allows me to spend more time with these characters and these events so I can feel more connected to everything happening as if I am part of the journey, as opposed to seeing a highlights reel of Sam Manekshaw's greatest hits. That's like, it felt more like that, like the #1 Beatles album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like feeling like I am involved in this stuff. The only instance where I felt a sense of concern for Sam was when he was being put on trial for being anti-national. And even then I was like, I'm not really worried about him. And at no point in this story did I feel worried about him. This felt more like a celebration of Sam Manekshaw in a similar way that you might have a documentary. It just was absent of the actual real life people being interviewed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just took that out, and all you had was the dramatic reenactments.
Yeah.
The reenactments of what happened during those events. And so there was like wall-to-wall music, and so it's like I never forgot I was watching a film, and I never forgot I was watching a story about these people, about Sam Bahadur. Again, I appreciate like learning about him and all that stuff. It just never felt like it went deep. It felt like I was watching like a Robert Zemeckis later in his career film. Because like whenever I watch a Robert Zemeckis film, it feels kind of like this, where I'm just like, I'm not feeling any depth here. Like I get it, and I get this historical significance of everything they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's definitely left an impression on me as Sam Manekshaw and the people surrounding him during his career. All of that has left an impression on me. I just wish that I felt more depth along the way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but then I think again the task at hand was very challenging, because how do you condense the life of such an important man who had such an effect on the army and the country in a movie that's 2.5 hours long,
I think one of the tough things about a film like this is you're so burdened with having to show respect to him that you can't point out flaws, right? If your main character can't have flaws, like there's not a whole lot of interesting places to go with the character. Looking at it from an artistic standpoint,
sure,
and looking at it from a storyteller standpoint, it's like there wasn't really a story here. It was just kind of chronicling his life. And biopics are hard for that very reason.
Yeah.
Biopics are such a challenge. It's like, how do you make a story out of that.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, what does your character want?
What's their arc?
What's their arc?
Yeah.
And it's like, there wasn't really one here. It was just following him, which there's an argument to be made that that's fine.
And I mean, it was very, very interesting. And I mean, kudos to the direction, to, you know, the attention to detail that was being paid to like the sets and the cinematography, the costumes, makeup.
I disagree with the makeup. I agree with everything else.
Well, okay, fine. Maybe wardrobe more so than makeup. But
I think that the makeup for Sam and Exshaw was great.
yes.
But everybody else, I was kind of questioning the makeup. I wasn't happy with it. But everything else, yeah, the costumes, the set design,
Well,
all
yeah,
that
because
stuff.
even I noticed with the costumes for Sam, like right until the very end, at one point I was like, oh, they gave him a little paunch, like just a tad. Like he was still a trim gentleman,
Yeah.
but they gave him enough to give him the sense of like he's older now, so he's got a little bit more weight in the midsection, and like the uniforms fitting a little bit differently. But it was so subtle that I was like, oh, that was nice. And even like going from one scene to the next where he's not wearing glasses, and then all of a sudden he's like got these massive glasses on, and signifying that he's older. I was like, oh, those are like really neat little tricks that costuming has used to kind of let us, the audience, know some time has passed. This character is a little bit older now, but it's not too extreme, which I guess for certain characters in the movie, as they aged up, it was a little bit like, ooh, that was a lot.
I agree with you. I agree with everything you're saying. The makeup was the one part that just jumped out at me as like, oh, that could have been better, and I wish it was. I think it's hard to achieve the kind of makeup they did in... It's a weird example, but Avengers Endgame with Chris Evans to make him old Captain America was so convincing, and I think
they also used some CGI as well.
Okay, that makes sense. It's hard.
It's really hard.
It's a really hard thing to do
with practical effects.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit difficult for me at times to like not notice the makeup, but like you said, like the environment, everything, the world itself was brought to life really, really well.
It was really, really interesting, and so and like Vicky Kaushal did such a fantastic job as the character that, you know, he was just so charismatic and charming. It's like, yeah, you enjoyed going along this journey, like going through the greatest hits of his life with him, and like some of the other quirky little characters that they had, like his cook.
Sure.
Who was like really sassy and really fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
And some of the soldiers and people that he interacted with throughout. So yeah, that was interesting. But I know what you're saying about it feeling like there was a lack of maybe an arc to the story.
There was no darkness, really.
Sure.
You know, and we're dealing with some really dark stuff, and I didn't feel like I saw a lot in the way of setbacks. It was just like, okay, it's just...
He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy you call. Everything's okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like how I would compare this. It almost felt like I was watching a story about a religious figure in a way, you know, because like you think about... My easy go-to is obviously Jesus, right? Because I grew up Catholic. And it's like along the way in the New Testament, Jesus doesn't really have any setbacks until he's crucified.
Sure.
Right? He's perfect. Like that's what makes human characters just generally so interesting in stories that are well written. The other thing that kind of threw me sometimes, while the environments look great, the uniforms, everything, all that was cool, there were instances it just felt like the people in the environment weren't really lived in. Like it almost felt a little bit hollow in a way.
Oh, like the extras and stuff?
Yeah. Okay, for instance, when he met Sanya Malhotra, right? Or Silu. When they first met at the party, he's surrounded by people who say almost nothing. And she's surrounded by dudes who say almost nothing. And he just walks up and there's no reaction from anybody. His kids don't really even say anything either.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of those scenes where it's just like, did you guys like not have time to kind of like construct the little feedback that these random characters that don't really matter but matter for bringing this to life? Like, did you have any time to like work something with them at all? Because it just felt like nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and they might as well have not been there because they're just props is what it felt like.
Yeah, just like human props.
Yeah, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit. I really wish that this was a show, and I wish that this was handled with the same sort of, I don't know how to put it, but the same sort of realism that Talvar gave me.
Which is interesting because it's by the same director.
That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I mentioned it. Because I remember my feeling watching Talvar and the experience of that was like such a great movie.
Yeah, it was so visceral.
Yeah, and I wanted this to feel the same way. That's what actually, when we looked up the IMDb before the film started, when I saw that she did Talvar, I'm like, oh, I'm primed and ready for this movie. You know what I mean? And then I got a totally different experience than what I wanted, so I sort of set myself up in that way. But I must go back to that the people who occupied these significant roles did such a fantastic job, and I think that's what carried me through the movie more than anything else. And I'm not just talking about like the main actors, the little people, the nameless, the soldiers who had so much love for Sam Manekshaw. Like all of that came through, and I appreciated all that. I do wish that the film showed me why they loved him so much early on, because when he had the inquiry about being anti-national, I didn't really understand, like, because the film told me his soldiers love him, and that's a problem. He loves himself, and they love him. And I'm like, I don't know why they love him, though. And it was made more clear to me as the film went on.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It's like I kind of needed that earlier, you know what I mean? And what the thing that was most apparent to me was just his undying love for his army and how he had their back like nobody's business.
Yeah, and that's why, right? That everyone loves him. But I think maybe the thing is, the film is definitely geared at the Indian audience, right?
Sure.
And so perhaps we're burdened with not knowing enough about this person, whereas everyone watching it in India or who knows of Sam Manekshaw is like, yeah, everyone loved him because he was that guy who stood up for the rights and respect of people in the army, and that's why people loved him. And so perhaps Meghna Gulzar didn't feel like she had to be burdened with telling us or showing us so much of that, because everyone watching probably already knows.
That's fair.
You know,
that's fair. I just felt, I don't know. I can't put myself in the head of an Indian person, right? I can only put myself in my own head. But I would imagine that given what we explored here, it almost felt like what I feel when I see a live action version of a Disney movie being made from an animation I loved. It's like, are you really doing anything new with it that is a different experience? Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that from the interview. I remember that from the interview. And it didn't really go deeper than what he said in his interview. You know what I mean? Right. Not too often. What I got a little bit more of here that I didn't get too much of from the interview, I suppose, is just the relationship he had, and I mean this in a non-romantic way, the relationship he had with the Prime Minister, and like the level of dialogue that they had. Like, and what that was like going on.
Right.
You know?
It was quite intimate in a way, because, you know, he did speak freely with her.
Yeah.
In the most respectful way.
Yeah.
But still was very candid with her about what he thought should be done. And she was smart enough to realize that he was someone who cared about his troops and who cared about the country and knew what he was doing, that she would listen to him. Yeah. You know, because it takes a certain level of humility and intelligence to be able to go, you know what? Like, this is why I have you on my team. Yeah. Because you will tell me when things are not right or what I should be doing, and I'm smart, so I'm going to listen to you, because I don't know all that stuff.
The level of honor on display, the level of realness and truth on display, the level of love was all a joy to watch.
Yeah, truly.
You know, I very much appreciated his depiction as a person.
Yeah. I mean, it's just made me have so much more respect for Sam Manekshaw and everything that he's contributed to India, and just like the type of person that he was. You know, he would be the type of man that you would want to have by your side, the type of man that you would want to have as your friend, you know?
I still wonder what the heck was going on in that bar scene with Kalki. Like, I didn't hear any music in the background, and I'm like, what is going on? And I wonder if there was a song that they had to like remove because of copyright issues or something. That I don't know. It's just, it was so weird. Like, I saw people dancing, and I'm like, I can't hear anything. My headphones work just fine.
That was a really cute cameo as well. I think to have Kalki come in and just do this little thing, this like little bit character, just for fun. Like, I don't know what her relationship is to the director, but like, that was a really fun cameo that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I would really like it if, I mean, I know this would be a completely different cast and different director and all that potentially, but I would love it if they would do a whole show around these events and these stories. I feel like there's such depth you can explore, especially because it's just chronicling through the beginning of India and the separation of East and West Pakistan. And like, there's so much there's so much just
so much stuff there.
Yeah,
And like, especially it was really interesting, all that stuff with partition and, you know, people having to choose where to go, and also feeling the sense of like, you guys will always be my family, you know, this is the army, we're together. And then seeing that same person then kind of go the other way and do some really atrocious things, and it's like, okay, did you forget who you said you were? You know, it's just like, that's also an interesting story in itself. Unfortunately, not this story that, you know, is being told right now.
It also seemed like there was something left on the table there with the prime minister. Is it a prime minister or president of Pakistan?
Yeah.
It seemed like something was left on the table there. You know, I don't know how you go about that. Maybe whatever I'm thinking of has to be completely fabricated and made up.
That's the thing.
You know, because it's trying to stay accurate, and so I'm like, all right, that's fine. It's just something
not as dramatic.
Yeah.
We wanted that reunion. We wanted that moment where it's like they face off, and it's like, you were my friend, and now we're on opposite sides, and this is painful and awkward and weird.
Something.
Yeah.
Anything.
But
like,
it's not like that.
No.
This is, you know, they're trying to be true to life.
Even a phone call, like something, you know?
Yeah.
It would have been interesting, but I get it. They're trying, you know, it's tricky.
Yeah, because we don't know. We don't know how much, what is it called? Artistic licensing they did with this.
But again, kudos to the actors involved. Kudos to the just embarking on this story. You know, Meghna Gulzar, even if I disagree with the decisions that were made in telling this story, I don't know what she was up against. I don't know what hurdles she faced in telling this story, if her hand was forced a particular way. It's just like, this does not feel anything like this. If you told me, like, oh yeah, that's the same director of Talvar, I wouldn't believe you. It's like that. It feels like completely different movies in terms of the approach.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not to say a director can't do two different styles. Many do. But it's like, when you watch The Hateful Eight or Inglourious Bastards or Pulp Fiction, it's like, I feel the same director has done these stories.
Well, that's also because Quentin Tarantino has a very specific style.
I get it. It's just an example, the easiest one for me to reach to, because I was rewatching Inglourious Bastards this morning. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can identify a Spielberg film, you know? There's little things. Oh yeah, that feels like Spielberg.
Yes.
And so I didn't feel the same director here, but it's been a while since I've watched Talvar. So in any case, even if I disagree with some of the decisions made creatively here, I still appreciate that she told this story, because it gave me an opportunity to deeper discover Sam Manekshaw and his significance in just India in general. You know, it was done with a lot of, even though I wish it went to darker places, it was done with the highest level of respect
and love.
Yeah. And I definitely can see that, and I appreciate that. You guys, thanks so much for hanging. Let us know your feelings in the comments below. How'd you feel about the film? And that's it for now. I'm Jabby Koi. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.